Hello and welcome to the programme where we get to the heart of the day's stories and communities across Scotland. Tonight, can a new police unit deal with a rise in shoplifting? It's been set up after a sharp rise in retail crime. We'll ask one long-serving shopkeeper if it will make any difference. We'll hear from one of the Scots caught up in the chaos of the devastating earthquake that hit Southeast Asia. And we're off to work with the 85-year-old who's helping keep our network of dry stain dikes standing tall. And we've also been speaking to the comedian Russell Kane as he gets ready to close the Glasgow Comedy Festival. We've got all the sport with Lewis as well. What have you got coming up tonight?
Well, Premiership action returns tomorrow after a 2-week break, and we'll hear from several of the clubs involved as we enter the business end of the season, Andrew.
Welcome to the news at 7. Now, every day across Scotland, convenience store owners have to count the cost of shoplifting. Cases here went up by a quarter last year to more than 42,000, although the real figure is likely to be much higher because many thefts don't get reported. And it's not just the financial loss either. Retailers say the level of violence and abuse against their workers is getting worse. So now police have set up a group dedicated to tackling retail crime with 14 officers and detectives focusing on the shoplifting hotspots of Edinburgh, Glasgow and Lanarkshire. They've been given £3 million by the government towards it.
Criminals and organised criminals always look for weaknesses in the system, and it's our job working in partnership to close those weaknesses. So the £3 million gives us that opportunity to address a number of issues that make this an attractive approach. So this funding allows us to more intelligently target the key people that we need to deal with and do that more effectively, but also allows us to start to invest in prevention, to encourage people not to get involved in this type of activity, as well as working with shopkeepers to secure their stores and prevent opportunities for shoplifting.
OK, with me now in the studio, Natalie Lightfoot, who's a shopkeeper in Glasgow. So Natalie, thank you for joining us. You've been running a convenience store in the outskirts of the city for something like 19 years, so I'm sure you've seen it all yourself. The shoplifting then, what kind of effect has that had on you personally, as well as on a business front as well?
Shoplifting, it's not been victimless, I'll put it that way. It's had quite a negative bearing on my mental health and well-being. I've suffered things like break-ins at the store. When I was pregnant, I ended up losing the baby. But shoplifting as a whole, it comes with a torrent worth of abuse, and that's what I've been experiencing even this week.
Why have you stuck with it for so long?
It's a good question. I think because I do love it, the aspects of retailing. I enjoy the community, I enjoy my customers, and I enjoy my shop, and why shouldn't I? It shouldn't be a reason, and I'm quite stubborn, so I don't want to give in.
And what about the reasons people shoplift as well? So you were talking about all the abuse and potential violence that comes your way. I suppose you will also find people that are just extremely desperate. They're in desperate poverty and they need to do something.
In my opinion, that's not what I'm experiencing. A lot of the shoplifting that I'm experiencing in my shop is following on from the fact that shoplifters can get away with it. There's no consequence to their actions. It's not people that are poverty-stricken. It's people that are perhaps embedded in addiction, messed up with, drug addiction as well. And yeah, they know that nothing's going to happen to them, so they just keep going. I keep coming back.
Why is it then that so many shoplifting crimes go unreported?
I think the reporting system's flawed. I think that that needs to get a handle on as well, and hopefully this task force will address that, because a lot of retailers, they don't feel that reporting certain items that are stolen, nothing ever happens, there's no consequence, like I said. So, yeah, we basically just need an improvement.
Do you think the task force will do its job then? We're talking about 14 officers here working in tandem with other police officers as well.
I think that 3 million. It's a big number, right? And it sounds quite good, but I think that spread out over the whole of Scotland, it's pretty thin. But it's a start, and I hope that as long as retailers start reporting and the statistics show that something needs to be done and they can actually do something about it too, then yeah.
Okay,
so.
Natalie, thank you very much for joining us on the News at 7 programme tonight. All the best to you as well. Now, a number of Scots are among the people caught up in a massive earthquake in Myanmar, which has also affected neighbouring Thailand. At least 144 people are thought to have died, and a rescue operation is underway. Fraser Morton is from Dunbar and is visiting Bangkok at the moment. He told me what happened to him when the quake struck.
Sure. I was actually in the shopping mall that I think you can see behind me. I was shopping for a camera, looking in the window. All of a sudden, the ground started to move. And there was a moment where you're trying to work out, is this a small tremor or is this, something bigger? And it became pretty apparent that this was something pretty big. And also earthquakes are not, a common occurrence in Bangkok. So it was a pretty intense, pretty strange thing to experience.
And how did you feel at the time?
Well, to be honest, I've been in a few earthquakes before, and my immediate response was, that can't be an earthquake in Bangkok. And then the next second, like, okay, this is definitely an earthquake. But then how serious is this? And it just, within a matter of, it's 2 seconds, it just became apparent that, it was pretty serious, and people started to scream and to run to the escalators. So yeah, you kind of, it's pretty intense. Like you're just hoping that you can make it out in time. So by the time I got down to the second floor, it's pretty, it's pretty intense. A lot of people screaming, a lot of panic. You're hearing crashing in the building, and then we get outside, and there's kind of nowhere to go because you're just surrounded by high rises. So yeah, it's pretty intense experience.
How are things now? Are they much calmer?
Yeah, so I went just for a walk along Sukhumvit, which is one of Bangkok's busiest streets, and people are starting, Bangkok residents are pretty resilient, and so they're starting to, head back to the bars, and shops are starting to open up again. But I think there's a lot of uncertainty because there are shops and malls that are closed, and also there's some infrastructure damage. So I think I'm unsure whether I can get to the airport. I think the airport might be closed. You'll know better than I will at this point.
Yeah, so you think you're going to be stuck in Bangkok for a bit of time then before you can get a flight home?
Yeah, I think, I missed my flight today. I'll try and get a hotel for tonight, and then try and see what's happening with the airport and if it's open again, and try to get a flight out.
Okay, well, all the best to you, and thanks for joining us on the programme.
Thanks very much.
Fraser Morton there speaking to us from Bangkok. OK, let's get a roundup of the stories making the BBC News app in Scotland. And the First Minister offered to visit a primary school in East Renfrewshire after it was targeted with sectarian attacks. St Joseph's Primary School was sprayed with graffiti. A cargo ship involved in a crash with an oil tanker in the North Sea 2 weeks ago has been towed to Aberdeen, where it's being looked at for damage. Police are investigating a report of a teacher viewing pornography at Hawick High School. Officers say they got a complaint of a man viewing images on Wednesday. And a Scottish badminton player who overran a bathroom break while attending to her period has had a penalty removed by the sport's governing body. Kirsty Gilmore had been given a yellow card. And for more information on all those stories, just scan the QR code on the screen now. It'll take you straight to the BBC Scotland News app. Now, how do you like the sound of having the lowest energy bills in Europe? Well, that's no pipe dream, according to the founder of Octopus Energy. Greg Jackson reckons Scottish consumers would see huge savings if prices were based on how much power is generated where we live.
A load of other countries do the same. And essentially, you break the country up into zones. And instead of the electricity price being set by the most expensive electricity in the whole nation, you base it on local supply and demand. And what it would mean, particularly for Scotland, is that, with a lot of renewable generation, Scottish prices would be cut very significantly from where they are now.
Well, Callum McKeever is from Strathclyde University and is an expert on these issues. I asked him if shaking up energy charging could really work.
Yeah, so the first thing to say about this potential move to zonal pricing is that it's a very hotly contested topic in the energy sector, and it's really splitting the industry down the middle a little bit, because we've been talking about this for 3 years now. The government been considering it, and they still haven't come to a decision. And one of the main reasons is that there are really good arguments on both sides of the debate, really, as to whether this is a good idea or a bad idea. So, as Octopus might outline, there are potential for lower prices in regions that have potentially an oversupply of renewable energy, which is low cost at the point you use it, compared to the amount of transmission you have to get that to the demand centres that you have. So Scotland might be one of those regions at present, because we lag behind a little bit on the amount of transmission that we've been able to build out in the last 10 years, say, relative to the amount of renewables that we've built out. On the other side of the ledger, you've got generation companies who are worried that this might introduce additional risks on their business, might reduce the revenues that they can get. At the same time as government are relying on them to build out huge amounts of investment over the next decade to meet clean power targets, for the government's manifesto commitment to deliver a clean power system. You're introducing this really fundamental change to the energy system, and they think that will potentially increase their cost of delivering that.
So in theory then, could this new geographical way of doing things be set up quite easily?
Definitely not easily. You're looking at least a 5-year programme of a transition to this, so it's definitely not an overnight fix. There are lots of logistical challenges to get in place as to how this would work. The level of protections you provide, for example, to existing generators who've been built on the premise of a market that is now changing. And there's lots of political decisions to be made about it as well, relating to how consumers like us might be exposed to the prices or not, because there are different ways that you could deliver zonal pricing, and they haven't really decided which route they would take.
Do you think this will ever happen then? Because it seems like, apart from Greg Jackson, the energy industry is overwhelmingly opposed at the moment.
It could happen. There are elements of government seem to be quite keen on it, but as I say, it's not going to happen overnight. There is lots of opposition to it. I'm glad I'm not the one that's making the decision, because it is very complex. But yeah, it's certainly not something that's going to be happening before 2030 anyway.
OK, well, thank you very much for joining us on The Seven tonight and explaining it for us all.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you for joining us for tonight's News at 7. Lots more to come on the programme, including we catch up with comedian Russell Kane ahead of 3 Scottish shows.
It's April next week and things are looking up. It's warming up too, but a bit of rain before we get there. I'll have a full extended forecast later in the programme.
Now, if you like getting out in the country and all this lovely weather we've been having, I'm sure you'll have seen some of the thousands of miles of dry stone dikes that crisscross our landscape. However, this amazing skill is at risk because more people are replacing them with cheaper fencing. One of those trying to keep the tradition alive is Dave Goulder from Sutherland, who at the age of 85 is still out there going strong.
It's just nice to just feel warm stone under the fingers. Just take your time and just look at your stones individually. And sooner or later, your eye will tell you, that's the right one there, that's the one you should pick up. My name is Dave Goulder. I'm a master craftsman dry stone diker. Now, just pushing 86 years old, I'm still working because it's the sort of thing that just gets hold of you, gets into your bloodstream.
Dave's a legend in the area, and he is well renowned for the quality of his dry stone walling and his training.
You want it going that way across so you can jam. You'd never want it going that way. That's good. I'll keep an elephant out.
So we felt it was a really good fit for us to actually encourage young people into the art of being able to maintain and restore old dry stone walls.
The stones were gathered up and made to stand.
A dry stone dike is just what I call an orderly pile of stones.
It's taking the stone from the land and creating walls without the use of any mortar.
The ordinary double dike is actually two walls leaning on each other. And in between these two walls, a lot of filling, which we call hearting. It's the heart of the wall. The trouble is, if you make one mistake low down, you pay for it a bit later on, and it's quite often too late to shift it. I started work as a fireman on steam locomotives in the 1950s. I'm a kind of industrial dinosaur, really. And there was obviously no future in that. And I saw this course advertised by the Agricultural Training Board, and it was just like Road to Damascus. And in no time at all, I found I was actually earning a living as a semi-professional dry stone diker.
I've been wanting to do a dry stone walling course for years and years and years. I've got a load of old croft buildings that have fallen down on my crofts, and I just want to be able to kind of repair them and shore the walls up so that they don't completely disappear.
When I started as an instructor, which was with the late 70s, 1980, the skill had not entirely lost, but a lot of places it had, because cheap fencing materials became available, and that was quicker and a lot cheaper. But they finally realised that there's no shelter behind a fence. And in the winter, if you travel the Highlands at all to see where all the sheep are, any bit of dry stone wall, that's that little bit of shelter, and it's probably saved the lives of hundreds of thousands of sheep. Any farmer will tell you that.
Two walls that lean against each other.
I've always fancied doing dry stone diking. When the opportunity came up, I knew that Dave was offering the course, so grabbed it with both hands.
Oh, where did that one come from? That's a good one, isn't it? Didn't spot that. Yeah. Great.
In the Highlands, we have a lot of old skills. Dave's the kind of guy that's going to keep that going.
Now, everybody usually rushes this. It'd be nice if you didn't rush it. It's what we want is a nice, even run of copes. Every stone you pick up is an individual. There's nothing quite like that stone anywhere, not even on the planet Zog. There's nothing quite like the one you're holding in your hands, and you put it in a gap, which is also unique. And there's a real satisfaction in that. It's a real skill. It's a cross between a craft and an art. And that's the way I am about it. I just like stone.
Absolutely fantastic. Dave Goulder there, who this year was awarded a British Empire Medal for services to dry stone diking. Now, still to come on the programme, we've got the weekend weather with Christopher, and we're going to be hearing from the comedian Russell Kane, who's doing 3 dates across Scotland this weekend. First of all, here's Lewis with his sport.
Thanks very much, Andrew. Good evening. Scottish Premiership football returns this weekend after a 2-week break, and here's a reminder of how things stand in the table. Celtic, runaway leaders, of course, with 8 games still to play. Brendan Rodgers' side, as you can see, 13 points ahead of Rangers. It's very tight in the race for third place, though. Just 6 points actually separate third and 7th, while St Johnstone are 5 points adrift at the bottom. So here are the weekend matches. There are 3 more rounds of fixtures before the top 6 and bottom 6 split. So the likes of Motherwell, St Mirren and Ross County will be doing all that they can to try and snatch a place in the top half. But let's go back to leaders Celtic, shall we, who'll be without this man here, goalkeeper Kasper Schmeichel, when Hearts visit tomorrow because the Dane picked up a shoulder injury while on international duty. Rodgers saying today he's unsure how long the 38-year-old will be out. Finland international Vajami Sinisalo will deputise. The former Aston Villa player's only appearance this season was in Celtic's 5-0 win against Wraith Rovers in the Scottish Cup. Hearts head coach Neil Critchley has previously worked with Sinisalo.
He's a very good goalkeeper. I was with him for a short period, Aston Villa, and that was a couple of seasons ago, a couple of years ago. He impressed me straight away with his talent as a goalkeeper, but also his temperament. He had an outstanding season at Exeter in League One when I was at Blackpool. He's a top young goalkeeper. He just hasn't got the experience of Kasper Schmeichel, but there's nothing he can do about that. He's 23, I think. He's a lot younger.
Well, after seeing off Fenerbahce in the Europa League and beating Celtic in the Premiership, Barry Ferguson's Rangers' task is to go up to the city of Discovery and try and deal with Tony Docherty's Dundee. It's a venue the Ibrox club have failed to win at in their last 2 visits, and Dundee will have a spring in their step, having beaten rivals Dundee United at Tannadice in their last game. But Rangers goalkeeper Jack Butland believes the culture Barry Ferguson, Neil McCann, Billy Dodds and Alan McGregor are creating will help them secure 3 points at Dens Park.
They were very conscious about getting results, very conscious about trying to make the environment and the energy right, which they have done. They've come in with big voices, big energy, big characters. And when you've got that, it's very easy to follow. It's very easy to follow that standard, to understand who they were, who they are as people, what they were as players, and no grey area. What's expected is what's expected, and that's what's demanded all the time. So yeah, it didn't take long. A few of the other lads might have been taken a little bit aback by some of the hair dryers at times, but I guess it's what was needed.
David Gray's Hibs will be looking to consolidate third place when Simo Valakari's St Johnstone visit Easter Road. One of the Leith side's most important players has been Belgian-born Congo international defender Rocky Bashiri, who played in a World Cup qualifying victory over South Sudan recently. He's out of contract in the summer and fielded questions from our reporter Brian McLaughlin today.
What's the future for yourself?
I mean, we never know what's the future. What's your future?
My future is I'm going home for my dinner tonight.
Me too.
Long term, what is your future?
I don't know. If I'm honest, I don't know how the future looks like, but I hope a positive future.
Would that be here at Hibs?
Why not? I mean, I've been exchanging with the manager and the club over the last few months, but an official offer hasn't been there yet, but we have exchanged.
Well, as I mentioned earlier, there's very little separating third through to seventh in the league, and two teams who fall into those spots and are firmly in the hunt for top six and European football are Aberdeen and Motherwell. The sides meet for the third time this season, each with a win to their name in the previous two matches. The latest was this clash at Fir Park in January when the Steelmen ran out 2-0 winners, but at a sold-out Pittodrie. What are the managers expecting tomorrow?
Every game is difficult, but of course we want to win tomorrow. And you see, I think it's a sellout again at Pittodrie. The supporters are so supportive. They have been really good in the good times, and we have some more difficult times. We have away games, at home games, and this togetherness is our engine to perform really well tomorrow again.
Aberdeen, this is a tough game. The table is perfect, so we have a big game. 20,000 spectators, 700 supporters from us. So it's really great to be on the pitch on Saturday.
And remember, there is a lot more that you can read and watch on the BBC Sports Scotland website, including a preview to Scotland's involvement in the Men's World Curling Championship in Canada. The tournament starts tomorrow, so a big one for them. And Andrew, have you ever heard of a place called Moose Jaw?
No, well, I did it 5 minutes ago.
Exactly, in Canada. That's where the curling takes place. I found that very entertaining when I heard that. Had to say.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Lewis.
Cheers.
Now, it's Friday, so that means it's time for some entertainment news. So, Indigo, it's been another year for the Comedy Festival in Glasgow, another success. Just tell us a bit more.
Yes, that's right. The Glasgow Comedy Fest comes to an end this weekend, and it's going to be closed by comedian Russell Kane. He's performing at the King's Theatre on Sunday. He's also performing in Edinburgh on Friday, and he'll be performing in Aberdeen on Saturday as well. Well, I caught up with the comedian, and he actually told me that one of his biggest ever achievements happened here in Scotland. You're bringing your show Hyperactive to Scotland. What can the audiences expect?
Well, it's my unique mix of shows that actually say something and have a bit of depth, but are just so funny you go out injured. Mixed with lots and lots of improvisation. I tailor it a lot, whether it's Inverness, Aberdeen, Glasgow, Edinburgh. It doesn't make any difference. I within a few minutes of arriving, like a sort of chameleon, start to absorb local stuff, and then back out it comes as stand-up.
Scotland's got a bit of a reputation for having the best audiences. Is that something you've found?
I love Scottish people. They're meant. I go to Ibiza a lot, so it tends to feel, once you see the the Ouija's go, that's too much, that I'm going home. You know, it's time to go home. They're like, you know, like when you take a canary down into a mine, I always like to take a Scottish person into a rave, because that's when I know the rave's got too serious when they leave. When I did my first tours, you start in the Stand, Glasgow. That's a completely different gig to the Garage, Glasgow. And this time I'm in the King's Theatre where all the Ouija's act all posh and drink red wine and that. But in the Garage, everyone's like stuck to the floor and like doing shots and stuff. Completely different atmosphere.
You've had such a long and successful career, but what would you say has been the highlight?
Winning the Edinburgh Comedy Award, easy. There's no question. I won't top that. I could win a BAFTA, I could win an Oscar when I'm older, whatever. When you win the Edinburgh Comedy Award, you're emerging from nothing to be given your career via this magic portal. And if you're posh, or you've been to Oxford or Cambridge, or what's the Scottish, because St Andrews, where no Scottish people probably even go. We expect those people to become successful because they've had money thrown at them and they've been privately educated and they've been privileged for generations. When an absolute peasant from a council estate to go to Edinburgh to generate nothing but debt, when you're probably working 2 jobs at home, when your life is probably going to amount to nothing like everyone else in your postcode, and win that Edinburgh Comedy Award, it's like being handed a golden chalice.
I'm just, no, I'm not comfortable. Cut me copies of The Guardian and tell me when this bit's over, Olivia.
There we go, Russell Kane there, Indigo. He's not the only one finishing up the festival, of course. Just tell us who else is going to be performing.
That's right, it might be the last weekend, but there's still plenty on offer. We have Susie McCabe performing, we've got Jenny Eclair or Roscoe McClelland as well. So plenty to keep you entertained over the weekend. OK,
great. Thank you very much, Indigo. There we go, that's the entertainment news. Let's get the weather now. So, Chris, has been very changeable this week, hasn't it? Rain,
hasn't it just?
Torrential rain and sunshine. So the big question is, what's it going to be like in the weekend?
Actually, a bit of everything. And then next week, it's April and things are looking up. Dry, bright and increasingly warm, Andrew.
Very nice.
Yes. Let's take a look at some of the pictures that have come to us today, though. Some brilliant pictures of massive shower clouds there in Fife. A few rainbows and some lovely spells of sunshine at times too. But what is coming up over the next few days? Let's take a look. Because, yes, we do have high pressure nearby, but actually low pressure is going to be with us initially tomorrow. That then clears and we'll see a drier end to the weekend. But you can see high pressure is to the south, and that's one to watch for next week because it will move in and bring a lot of dry and fine weather and increasingly warm weather too. Now, tomorrow morning, first off, it's a bit of a cloudy start. The best chance of any brighter weather likely across eastern Scotland. You can see some outbreaks of rain through parts of North Argyll towards the Highlands and Islands, and that rain will work its way in from the west and move east through the course of Saturday. So if you start the day dry, expect it to get wet. Here's what happens as we head through towards Saturday lunchtime and the early afternoon. The rain's spreading in towards the far north and northeast, and then central and southern parts. Windy too, the black arrows there indicating wind gusts. That was Saturday. This is Sunday. High pressure now taking over, quietening things down, calming things down. So it's a drier, brighter and warmer second half of the weekend. Bit of a cloudy start, a few light showers in the north, and winds coming in from the north, but actually it will be warmer just because there's more sunshine on offer. Temperatures by afternoon up to around 13 or 14 Celsius. And of course, don't forget this weekend, clocks go forward 1 hour overnight, Saturday to Sunday, so some lighter evenings on the way, which is good news coupled with next week's forecast because there's a lot of sunshine in it. This is what's happening with the jet stream. It's an Omega block there journeying to the north of us, and that allows high pressure to form, bring a lot of dry and fine weather. And with winds going clockwise around high pressure, we're dragging in some warm air from the near continent. So this is Monday. We've still got some cloud around and a few showers, but the wind's coming in from the southwest, lifting temperatures in the northeast up to around 18 degrees, turning warm down south as well. And then Tuesday onwards, which is the start of April, we'll really start to see those temperatures soaring with lots of sunshine in the forecast and a few spots reaching around 20 degrees. So the outlook you can see is looking set fair for the start of April. Andrew.
Chris, thank you very much. And that's all from us. Bye for now.